All right. Presented by Under Armour and Sleeper Fantasy. Welcome to Light Years. Sitting in across from me is my guy, Aaron Larsoul, best backup quarterback in the league.
Oh,
you're wearing your Niners hat today.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe we get a little Super Bowl talk at the end of this pod. I definitely am like getting into the spirit, nervousness. I mean, just all the feelings. I don't know how you feel.
Is there like a 5% chance you go to Vegas
for the game?
I mean, just go to Vegas. Whether you go to the game or not is a different matter.
Nah, it's not happening. But we're recording after the Warriors win 127-104 over the Philadelphia 76ers in what you can call a comfortable, boring win for the team, which honestly, this team needs more of these. They have not had, was this the fourth of these all year? Maybe the fifth in general?
Yeah, I mean, on the ESPN broadcast, they said, I think it was a 23-point lead that the Warriors had going into the fourth quarter, and they said that was the largest lead the Warriors had going into any fourth quarter this year. So the clutch games have not been super kind to the Warriors thus far. So absolutely having an easy one was really good. No, Star BK 30 was the biggest lead of the season. I think it was 23 going into the fourth quarter. That was the biggest lead going into the fourth quarter.
And just to tie it back, obviously this is on the backdrop of the trade deadline. We are recording this less than 17 hours from the trade deadline, 7:15. So yeah, 16 hours to the trade deadline or so. So all that backdrop. But let's start on the game. So Steve Kerr in pregame and really adamantly the last week says he doesn't think a trade is coming. Most coaches aren't big proponents of trades. They like to have their continuity. Steve more than most. He thinks he's figuring something out with this roster. He might be. They definitely are better than they were early in the season. And tonight was kind of another one of those games where since they've returned from the layoff after the untimely passing of Decky, they've leaned into this Draymond at center, Kuminga at power forward, Wiggins at small forward lineup. I'm not going to lie to you. It annoys me when people act like this is a stroke of genius, like this wasn't the obvious move in season. But, I also can't really blame the coaching staff for Draymond missing half the year suspended.
Also fair.
All I'm saying is it took them till late January to find it. And tonight it worked. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Andrew Wiggins, probably his best game of the season, most comfortable I've seen him offensively most this year, right on the backdrop of trade rumors. I don't know. Do you feel like they're figuring something out with this lineup? Where are you at with the Warriors, or is this just a consequence of no Embiid? Philly's kind of, I don't know. It's that time of year where teams are just trying to get there.
So I think it's a couple things. I think it's fair. This was Draymond's 9th game back from suspension, and the current starting lineup that you mentioned, Steph and Klay and Dre, and it's his 8th back. Okay, Steph, Klay, Dre, Wiggins,
8th post the Decky layoff because he came back for that Memphis game. Right. They lost, and then they didn't play.
And he wasn't. And when he first came back, he wasn't starting.
Right, and they didn't play for 9 days. So I kind of view like that 9-day gap, however you want to put it, as like a reset of the team because you don't get 9 days off in a season.
No, the All-Star break sometimes. But going into today, they had that lineup had a 110 offensive rating and 97 defensive rating. Is the 4th most played lineup, and those numbers improved today. So did they figure something out? Maybe. I know that feels like, not the like fence sitting right. Like maybe I don't know what we can take from today, because today was like one of the most unserious basketball games I've ever seen. So I don't know if you can take anything specific to today, because there's the Warriors have had, should we call it up and down, a very up and down season, really a tumultuous season. Obviously the off the court tragedy, and then Draymond being suspended, and the Wiggins stuff, and Klay maybe not closing, etc. All of these kind of things, losing a bunch of close games. It feels like the Warriors have been better recently than they were earlier. I don't know if we can take anything from today. And I part of why I think today is important. Obviously, the trade deadline is tomorrow, but all of those pressure points that I mentioned earlier, and specifically about Klay closing or not closing, and how any difficulty there. We didn't get to find out anything today, right? The Warriors were so far ahead, and after the first quarter, just dominated the game.
But at the same time, I would say 48th game, they're 23-25. They're still not over 500, although they're slowly getting back there. They need some wins like this.
Oh yeah, you need everyone you can get. Yes.
I mean, the whole they've been in so many close games things is true. And what happens when you're in that many close games and you're not a great defensive team, it ends up a 50-50 proposition. I think they're 16-18 in clutch time. If it's less than that, it's basically around 500, which is exactly what it is. They get down to a coin toss. You need more of these games where it's I guess you just take care of your business early.
Yeah, where Steph can score 9 points and not play in the fourth quarter because it's over with. Yeah.
By the way, Steph was still the best player on the court tonight. I don't care what it says. They figured out just use him as a screener and let guys get downhill into open space, and that'll work. I think Steph likes it, by the way, because he doesn't really have to do anything. This is a good way for him to kind of chill. He is 35. He's turned 36. It's unfair to ask him to score 40 a night, although it often feels like that's all they ask him to do. I think he played an excellent game tonight. I think Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga feasted at the rim, largely off those Steph Curry screens. And you know what? If it works, it works.
So I mean, some of this might be confirmation bias depending on how people fan, right? You got all of the light years goons in here, and some are going to tend positive and some are going to tend more negative. I think the last stretch of games, I think you can take it either way, which makes it quite an interesting deadline for Mike Dunleavy. Since coming back from the unfortunate passing and playing games, right? The Warriors have only lost. I think the Warriors have only lost twice, and it's a 1-point loss to the Lakers in double overtime, and the 1-point loss to Atlanta in overtime. Other than that,
and a 1-point loss to Sacramento.
Oh, right. Yes, that's right. It's the Sacramento and the Lakers, and then the game the Warriors should have won in Atlanta and didn't in overtime. So I think there's something there if you are sort of an optimistic sort that it feels like turning the corner, maybe coinciding with this lineup change. And if you're more of a negative Nancy, then I think it's fair to say the competition hasn't been any good, and
anytime they've gotten to a close game versus a more veteran team,
pop up. Yeah,
they're able to turn it up a little bit and they lose. So yeah, I mean that's definitely
and the rest before the break. The rest of the schedule, I think it's Indiana, Utah twice. Utah is right ahead of the Warriors and been playing really well. I think the Clippers. So like the schedule before the break turns up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's gonna be interesting. It does, like, we'll get into trade deadline after we do a little ad break here, but it does feel like they're playing better. They're finding out their best combinations with this roster. I would have liked to see it happen earlier in the year, but it is what it is. There's blame to go around on that one. Again, hard for me to get super mad at the coaching staff when Draymond spent the first 40 games and witnessed, I don't even know what you want to call.
Well, and Klay and Wiggins that wasn't the coaching staff's fault.
Yeah. I don't know why Wiggins was out of shape to start the season. There's theories he wasn't fully recovered from his injury, but they never put him on the injury report, which is telling. So, there's a lot to go with there. Kind of wasted the first 41 games, but here we are, right? Here we are. So, I don't know. We're going into the deadline. Quite interesting. Before we get to that stuff, I want to tell you guys about Under Armour. Steph Curry makes you believe you can do anything. And the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate bounce, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generation of ball players are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply to them. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. This NBA season, rock with your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. The Curry 11s. And I know people listening to this show are positive towards that one. Also, I want to tell you guys about Sleeper. Sleeper's fantasy sports plus real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. Sleeper has become the fastest organically growing fantasy platform in the world. 5 million users. Tonight, I'm going to take LeBron James to hit his over and under. Actually, I'm taking him tomorrow and all that stuff, just to be clear. And
the
you know
Kobe
what?
statue game,
The payouts, 5-1 on that one. So I suggest you do that. Moving forward, you guys should use the promo code LightYears, and you'll get 100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use. Currently operational in over 50 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right. Let's get back to it real quick.
All right.
I guess going into the deadline, and we'll talk rumors of who's being, supposedly shopped. Is this team worth holding on to?
That's the real question, right?
Like big move or little move, because Chris Paul's not back. He will be available at latest past the trade deadline. Well, probably after the trade deadline, just because it's a week away. Or sorry, the All-Star break, because it's a week away. Moses Moody just came back. GP2, who's an impact player for them, is a day or two away. Is this team worth holding on to?
So I think that's a really fascinating question. And that's what a lot of teams around the league are asking, not about the Warriors specifically, but even about their own situations, because this has been up till now and deadlines create activity. So, the rest of tonight and tomorrow can change things. But as of right now, the asking prices are so high that I think a lot of teams are asking, like, is there a season worth saving here? And what is it going to cost to do so? So Wiggins' name has been around a bunch, but I actually think the most interesting part of the Warriors deadline tomorrow is Chris Paul. I don't think Chris Paul is going to be traded, but I think that is like the first question that the Warriors have to answer. I do think Klay comes back. I think he's going to be at a reduced number. If the Warriors,
next year.
Correct. Yeah, right. If the Warriors are going to trade Wiggins, right, like by definition, they have to get back, approximately equal money. However many years that goes out is a question. But I think Chris Paul is kind of the inflection point, because he's the one that theoretically could be a free agent. Obviously, he has a non-guarantee next year. He would like all of his money because he wouldn't get that on the open market. But I think Chris Paul is the one that is really the interesting question. I do not anticipate him getting moved tomorrow, but the Warriors also have the option of moving him in the offseason by guaranteeing whatever portion of his contract they need to, in which case he would be an expiring salary at that number for whoever else. So from what I'm hearing from my sources and all of that, I don't have Sam's sources, but I have little sources around the league. There has not been a mandate for the Warriors from ownership to, shave money. So the Warriors have been very good over the years about keeping those salary slots open. And I'm really fascinated to see what happens with Chris Paul today as you're listening to this.
His name really hasn't been mentioned in most things. I think we need to discuss a few things here. Undeniably, he helped them win games early in the season when Draymond was out.
He did.
When Wiggins was out of shape. When Klay was playing poor. There was a lot of things that went awry for the Warriors early in the season. And it's not that they played well, but Chris Paul might be the reason they're 23-25 as opposed to 20-31 right now.
Sure.
Those are realistic. Those are realistic.
He was the best plus minus guy on the team.
At the same time, anyone who's watched Warriors basketball knows they look a hell of a lot more like the Warriors without him than with him. The team we saw tonight, you don't see that style of basketball with Chris Paul on the court. Whether that matters or doesn't is up to you to listen. But as they're establishing rhythm, the biggest thing I'm noticing with this small ball lineup with Draymond at the 5, they're playing so fast. They're playing like
Mhm.
the Warriors I know. They're getting Wiggins and Kuminga into space. No one's guarding athletes who want to get downhill into space if they're willing to put their head down and go, which Kuminga always is, and Wiggins increasingly is recently. You know,
Well, and
Chris Paul's gonna slow you down and play. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
that
you're
sort of
gonna dribble
thing.
the air out of it. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think they thought when they got him that was going to be an awesome counter off the bench, just like because the year before Jordan Poole tried to run with his head, like chicken with his head cut off type of thing, and it was just kind of it was too much, right? It was just if they shot well, they shot well, but that's it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think, and by the way, like kind of an underrated part of all of this, and you've mentioned it, and in the halftime walk off, JK talked about this today. I think the kind of underrated part of it is, well, first of all, the Warriors have nobody that gets like downhill like that and puts pressure on the rim. Jordan Poole used to, but was a little guy and not the athlete. Somebody that really puts pressure on the rim like this, I mean, does it go back to JaVale McGee maybe as a lob threat for somebody to actually put pressure on the rim, which is something that the Warriors have not had.
You haven't had a player with the ball in his hands.
No, yeah. But I think the underrated part of this is JK's improvement as a passer.
Yeah.
So he is able to take advantage of, he said this in the walk-off at halftime. His passing improvement allows him to take advantage of when he collapses the defense and gets downhill, he can spray it out to open shooters. Whether that's Steph, whether that's Klay, whether that's Moody, whether it's Wiggins, maybe kind of. I think we need to give a moment, like give a little love to JK for the improvement as a passer.
Yeah, and
because it allows him to take advantage in a team setting. It allows him to take advantage of his like individual advantages on offense, his size, his athleticism, etc.
And then the other player we're not mentioning, who they've used more as a shooting guard than point guard, is Podziemski. Has just been a revelation as a rookie, particularly moving the ball without turning it over. He had the 14 assists, 0 turnover game last week. Another 5 assists tonight, 0 turnovers. Yeah, he's a rookie. No one's going to mistake him for Chris Paul. But
him having 3 consecutive double-doubles as a rookie without a turnover that has never happened in the history of modern NBA recorded basketball is wild. It's a wild stat.
Right. All this kind of points to the need for Chris Paul being kind of the stabilizer off the bench, which is something they felt they needed, given Poole was not that guy. And just in general, it was Steph or death last year, right?
So like Steph or death, I like that.
Yeah, so it's like all this points to like, do they need Chris Paul? And to your point, all of it points to maybe he should be the one who they move for upgrades at the 5 spot. Looney had a great game tonight, but
he did.
He's had a subpar season.
He was channeling Milwaukee high school Looney. He came out of the timeout off the he was dribbling from a half court and got the and one. Yeah. Like that's baby KD high school Milwaukee Loon.
Yeah. No, I mean
they're
in
hip surgeries Loon.
There's definitely thought on kind of looking that direction. I still don't expect them to, though, because it seems like the only rumor out there has to do with Andrew Wiggins. And I think that's the interesting part. And of course, he has his best game of the season going into it. But I'm going to play this clip for you from Mark Stein, real quick, just to give us context so we can get into it real quick.
All right.
Over the last 48 hours, what are you hearing on Andrew Wiggins? Will he or will he not be a member of the Golden State Warriors by this time tomorrow?
I think he still ends up staying a Warrior, but the Warriors are exploring every conceivable option. He has been the player really over the last 2-3 weeks that the Warriors have tried to find potential trade avenues with. It just hasn't materialized. I think we've talked about this a few times. Wiggins, it's more than a season now that he's fallen well short of that level when he was such a difference maker on the run to the championship in 2022. And so year one of a 4-year deal when he's been struggling for more than a season, it's just not an ideal time to trade him. And I think you guys have also seen with Draymond Green coming back from suspension, with the Jonathan Kuminga we've seen in 2024, there have been some hopeful signs with the way Andrew Wiggins has played alongside those guys. So I think the big question the Warriors are asking themselves as the deadline draws near, do you really want to trade Andrew Wiggins when his value is low, take back multiple contracts with long-term money that you probably don't want on your payroll? Is that more appealing than just trying to get through this season, regroup after the season, and see if the positive stuff that has been percolating lately, see if that picks up? So
at the risk of sounding boring, that's kind of how I expect this to play out, right? Like, no one's giving them an amazing offer. They're probably going to bet on the fact if they want to move him in the offseason, it's not going to be any different than it is right now. But this might be something. He might get going, so we might as well see what we have in the short term.
Well, I think, I mean, I agree with you, but also just like a little, I'll kick it right back to you, but just a little piece of context here. Most of the rumors about Andrew Wiggins have come from, are in relation to the Dallas Mavericks, and Mark Stein lives in Dallas and is most connected to the Mavs of any. I mean, he's really good, and he's a national guy and has sources all over the place.
He's a Dallas guy.
He's
Dallas
most
guy
connected
first.
to, yeah, exactly. So that's interesting context for that. Which, by the way, is why my guy Bonte, shout out the Washington Eagles, my guy from high school, Bonte. I mean, right? That's why they have him on, because he's connected in Dallas, and that's where the Wiggins rumors have been.
Yeah, I mean, take that for what you want. I will say, Slater has said similar. You kind of get that tone from Shams and other reporters. You can take everyone at a grain of salt. Everyone's trying to feed everyone misinformation at this time of year.
Yeah, this
Let's
is
be
Lion
honest.
season. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like you kind of have to take it all. The way I read the Wiggins stuff is someone's exploring something, whether it's other teams seeing if they can get him at a cut rate, or whether it's the Warriors seeing if they can make a move. Someone's doing something there, right?
Yeah, there are definitely conversations. I can tell you firsthand, there are definitely conversations about Wiggins around the league. Yes.
But I kind of come back to Stein's
making calls or receiving calls.
Sure. The context is what matters, right?
Yes.
And that's the part we don't know. I will say, if you're the Warriors, maybe 2 weeks ago, your mind was, we're fucked. We're going nowhere. We paid him a lot of money and he's been inconsistent. We were kind of hoping the one dude who was in his mid-20s who got a big contract could be an everyday reliable player, and he hasn't been one. So maybe we should explore that. I can understand that. And I can also understand since that point, he's kind of kicked into gear. They have something going on right now. I don't know how much I believe in it, honestly. I don't know that I don't believe in it, but like, we're 48 games into the season. Be a little realistic here. They're still not over 500, And
look, most of his career, other than that great run in 2022, and he deserves full credit for that. Other than that, most of his career has looked like this, not to this extreme, because he's at career lows and all sorts of things.
No, but you're
most
right.
of his career
low effort
here
level, right?
sometimes, and not really, and kind of back, but not really. And I scored 26 tonight, but it didn't matter. Like, so to your point, like, most of the evidence is to this. Again, not to this extreme that this season, but and the end of last season. But most of it is vaguely like this, to your point.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really just don't expect the Warriors to do anything right now.
So let me hold your feet to the fire. You don't expect them to do anything, or anything like major?
I have a bet with Andy, which involves, the bet is the Warriors will make a move involving a $20+ million player.
Okay.
And his side is the Giants will sign someone for over $100 million.
So what if it's neither?
We both lose. We both lose.
You have to take each other out for a steak dinner or something?
No, loser has to buy a James Wiseman jersey and wear it on stream.
That's so good.
And so I think
I mean,
we're both
you go to Ross or like wherever. You should probably
we're all
probably find
losers,
him for
Ken.
$9.
You're right. So that's where we're sitting with this. I was dead set convinced the Warriors were going to make a shakeup move given the way they were going, and I felt pretty confident the Giants were going to sit back and not do something substantial.
Okay.
So the whole idea is like which team's going to make like a big move, right? And we set those numbers as parameters based off of just the economics of each sport. Like who's gonna make a number? Who's gonna be the team who trades a Klay Thompson or an Andrew Wiggins or the baseball team who signs a Blake Snell, right? Like that's the concept behind the deal. And I think I'm losing. That's where I'm at.
Well, right so I think you probably, I don't know if the Giants are going to sign anybody, but I think you're losing too. But I think
you're not winning.
I think a lot of it is, I said this earlier, it may have been here on playback on the stream before we actually went live. We were kind of kicking it around. This is kind of what the market is bearing right now. Like there are just, for a lot of reasons, one of which is the play-in tournament, and the flattening of the lottery odds. But for a lot of reasons, there are not as many sellers as normal, and there's a bunch of teams that are trying to buy, and the prices are just, even compared to recent years when there's been the play-in, the prices are just astronomical. Deadlines create activity, so maybe that changes here in the next, what do we have, 15 hours as we're recording this, so maybe that changes, or 17 hours. But as of right now,
it's poker table. Let's see if you're bluffing or you're actually going to walk away.
Yes.
So
yes, but it has been more quiet than ever before, even considering that.
And there's not a lot of difference makers available right now.
Correct. Also correct.
And I do think the new CBA as a backdrop has a lot of teams acting more conservatively.
Also true. Yep.
I think part of the reason the Warriors haven't traded Chris Paul, and we didn't get into this, is I'm not convinced they don't want his contract to expire to get under the apron.
So do you think it's that they don't want it? Because I've heard, let's just say I have heard that Lacob has not put a mandate to shed payroll yet. So do you think it's to, combine, just let him walk, let his contract expire, non-guarantee it, and then sign Klay for whatever number he comes in at, and that is a reduction? Or do you think that it maybe is to keep CP3 for the offseason when you can move him, guaranteeing whatever? Yeah. The optionality. We're back to optionality.
I think so. Let's talk about it. Can you just lay out what they can do if you don't trade him?
What they can do if they don't season. Wait, say that again. What they can do? In the offseason, if they don't trade him at the deadline, what they can do. So he has a non-guaranteed contract, which allows you to just non-guarantee him, and then it's an expiring contract. He walks away, and the Warriors are not responsible for his salary, and he becomes a free agent. Or you can trade him. But if you trade him, then for salary matching purposes, the Warriors are certainly going to be over the cap and are going to have to match salary. So for salary matching purposes, the Warriors would have to guarantee whatever portion of his contract up to I think it's up to whatever 30.
Yeah. So you're saying if they traded for a $15 million player,
then they would have to guarantee $15 million in his contract.
They could say, hey, we're trading Chris Paul with $15 million guaranteed plus a pick for your player.
Then the receiving team at that point, they can cut him, they can keep him, they can do whatever he wants. But it gives a lot of flexibility for the Warriors or for whatever team you're going to trade him to
make uneven trades.
Yeah, you can have, like, you can make the money whatever it needs to be. Or the Warriors have the optionality of just saying, we want this money off the books, you're non-guaranteed, in which case he could re-sign he's a free agent, so he could re-sign with the Warriors for whatever, or he could go wherever else.
Got it. So it does, the optionality comes back into play. It does seem like they're leaning that way. It does look like not liking what's out there right now, short of a 2 a.m. run at the table, Orlando or Chicago.
Sorry, by the way,
decides to lower the odds.
A good example of this is the trade to the Wizards from Phoenix to the Wizards, right? Because he was a partial guarantee this year, and they had to guarantee almost all of it to make the Bradley Beal trade work. And then the Warriors were traded for, the Jordan Poole thing. So
got it.
It's this way. It's that again this summer, except he was partially, I think he had 15 million guaranteed this past summer, and he has none of it guaranteed this summer.
Okay. That makes total sense. And thanks for providing that context. Yeah, man.
I think it's fascinating, which is why I say I think he is like the crux of all of this. Like long term, what path the Warriors take, I think he and his salary slot are more crucial to that calculation than Wiggins. Because if the Warriors trade Wiggins, they're going to get back, whatever, $30 million in salary. Will it be a year or 2 years shorter? I don't think the Warriors are getting somebody that they can, they're not getting $30 million in salary. They're getting off the books this season. So I think the Chris Paul is kind of the inflection point of what that'll tell more about what the plans are for long term for the future.
Makes sense. Give me your prediction, and then we'll get to a couple goon calls. What's your prediction for the Warriors at the deadline?
My prediction is nothing. My prediction is nothing. Although, to be fair, that's my prediction just basically all around the league. I think that what we are going to see tomorrow is like a bunch of sound and fury signifying nothing, I think the phrase is. I think you're going to see some 7th to 11th, 12th men moving around. I think you're going to see
maybe a little Royce O'Neal for a protected first.
That might even be a little bit more. I think we're going to see some people going for 4, 5 seconds, like we saw last year with Sadiq Bey and Wiseman and GPT.
Big Jimmy.
Yeah.
Warrior legend.
Rui Hachimura.
NBA champ. Big Jimmy.
Thomas Bryant. So I think we see some, and actually we saw a little bit of that today with the Celtics. I think we're going to see a handful of second round picks moved. I don't know that we're going to see first going for names that people have heard of. I think it's going to be pretty quiet. And I don't think the Warriors are going to do anything because I think the Warriors would like to trade Wiggins, but I don't think that they're going to find anything that is palatable.
Why do you think they want to trade Wiggins?
Because I think that,
we put the car in front of the coach in front of the horse or whatever the expression is.
Yeah, the cart in
front. But why do you think they actually want to trade him?
I think because they are afraid of that this Wiggins is the Wiggins, and the second apron is a scary place. Being in the second apron is a scary place.
See,
if you break up the contract into smaller contracts, it's different getting off of those. I don't think the Warriors can find anything that trading Wiggins that makes them better this year. Maybe it can be maybe it's addition by subtraction, but I think the Warriors would like to trade Wiggins. That is what is being said around the league. I don't know, but not in just we'll do anything to give him up. We'll just I don't think they're going to come to any agreements.
I agree with you. I think they feel so. Here's my impression of the Warriors. They're going to want Klay to cut rate.
Mm-hmm.
They already have Draymond at a palatable number. Steph is Steph. He's going to get God money because there's no number they can pay Steph that's fair.
Correct.
He's made everyone a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little more money with the second apron, and that needs to go to a player under the age of 30 who's an everyday player.
Well, and you're going to have to give money to Wiggins. Wiggins, to Kuminga pretty soon, right? Kuminga's extension is coming up too.
But you know what I'm saying by an everyday player. I'm not saying a guy who gets 30. I'm saying a guy who brings energy every day, who hey, man, if I'm in lineup, I'm getting 15 rebounds because that's what I do. If I'm in lineup, I'm locking up exactly. If I'm in lineup, I'm the best point of attack defender and I can hit some threes, like OG Anunoby, something like that. And Wiggins just is inconsistent. I don't know what you want to say. You can assign a moral characteristic to it, or you could just say that's who he is. He's just kind of a vapid guy who just kind of like floats. When you get him locked in, he's special. When you get him locked in, he's a very special player. Not a lot of players have the ceiling he showed in 2022. That's just a fact.
Yeah, no, there's very few of them, which is a main reason why the Warriors won the title.
Not a lot of guys get paid $25 to $30 million who have the floor he has either.
It's also fair.
Not a lot of guys get paid that much money and can disappear on you for 2 months. And then when they come back, can disappear with you while being on the court for another 6 months, you know? So
I will say though that his 25, whatever it is, 25, 28, 30, you know, going forward, that money is less offensive, right? As the salary cap rises, I think the raw dollar amount is not the best way to look at these things.
But don't you agree if you're going to, if someone's getting paid 25 million, that's plus starter money. That's not all-star money.
Yes.
That's
correct.
plus starter money.
Yes,
you're paying
correct.
plus starter money to get everyday effort. To get,
you'd hope. Yeah, you'd hope. Yes.
And
no, it hasn't been there. No, you're right. It just
that's
hasn't
quite like he's low motor. He just is, you know, like
yeah.
He can have a high motor, but if he had a high motor every game, he'd probably get 40, you know, like if he played with energy, so I mean, that's the question. I guess the question is, do they want to pay that money to a guy who has a high ceiling but a low floor, or pay it to a guy with a high floor but a lower ceiling?
I mean, in combination with Steph, I think you want the floor would be my suggestion, right?
But
I think it is an interesting discussion. It is an interesting discussion, but a question like, so now that the Warriors feel like they have settled on something, and Draymond at this point probably just should have been a 5, you know, shout out to Loon, who's always the good soldier and balls when he gets a chance, but may get DNPs. If the Warriors do make a trade, let's say CP3, right? Where do you think, like, is it a center? Do you want somebody to come in and now you're moving Dre back to 4, and then what happens with Kuminga? So I think that's an interesting question too, is if you are going to make a move, it's to get what? Like, where do you see where's the hole?
There's two ways to look at it. It's like, we're going to go in to upgrade the starting 5, or we're going to acquire pieces we haven't had to give us a deeper 8 to 9 man, right? So like, to your point, getting a Clint Capella,
right?
He's not closing.
No.
But he's better than Looney most nights.
Yeah.
He's better. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Like, if he gives you 20,
he can do more than Loon, yes.
If he gives you, he's in shape. He's better. Like the better.
He destroyed the Warriors.
Sure, but you know what I'm saying. Like he gives you that 20-ish minutes of real 5-man basketball that they currently do not have.
Yes,
and that's not in your closing lineup. That's not in it's crunch time against our best team lineup. But they lose a lot of games because they just don't know how to manage a full game. You know,
this was your Jakob Poeltl argument last year.
It was, yeah. So it's like, do you go that way, or do you go with, what if we upgrade Wiggins, or I'm going to throw Klay in there, even though that's less likely to happen. What if we upgrade those players to a better player and just have a death lineup, an actual death lineup again? And then just worry about the fact that when the death lineup's not out there, we're praying that Chris Paul can just dribble the life out of the ball for 4 minutes.
We're not taking a single shot until there's 3 seconds left on the shot clock.
Metaphorically, it's going to be 8 possessions over 4 minutes.
Right.
You know, so,
this is just we have a 2-1 lead in soccer, and we're just taking the ball into the corner.
We're passing it around the back line, kicking it out at the corner as much as we can. You know, like there's 2 ways to look at it that way.
I think Warriors basketball 87-84. Big win. It's gonna look like 90s Knicks basketball.
Win's a win. Honestly, I never thought I'd romanticize 90s basketball until I got locked into 140 to 145 basketball in the regular. Yeah, but anyway, that's a different.
I'm a little older than you. I watched the Sleepy Floyd game the other day. I'm a little older than you. But
you did. I run TMC was my christening, which is
they played like a season and a half together. You know what? Never mind.
That's how you know the Warriors sucked for 20 years, that everyone's romanticizing Run TMC and We Believe, which were both a year and change.
Yes, right.
Where it's just like, for a year, we looked competent.
For a year, we weren't 16-66.
For a year, you liked watching us.
For a year, Don Nelson didn't quiet quit on us.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. I think we leave it there. Let's get some callers up here. Actually,
Hey, let's
first.
get it.
Let's get our guy Ken. Ken's our new leadoff hitter.
Okay.
As my screen freezes.
All right. I mean, I can bring him up if you want. You want me to bring you? I'll bring Ken. Yeah, come on, Ken. Come hang out.
Ken the legend.
All right.
Oh,
Love the shirt.
We love the shirt.
Love the shirt.
Go Niners, right?
Indeed.
Can you guys see me? I can't see myself. But
We can see it.
We see the shirt, yeah, and
And
like
you
up to your half of your forehead.
I've got so many comments. I wrote down notes. So Sam, don't kick me out till I'm done.
Hey, Ken, you can go as long as you want.
All right. I got points. First of all, Aaron, thank
Yes.
you for joining. You are a great backup quarterback.
Oh, I appreciate you.
And speaking of backup quarterbacks, how about Colin Kaepernick as on the taxi squad for the LA Chargers? What's wrong with that idea?
I mean, my guess is Colin Kaepernick is still like the 34th best quarterback on planet Earth. So let's go. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. They brought Greg Roman back. Why the hell not?
I haven't actually wrapped my head around the idea that Jim Harbaugh's back in the NFL. I'm gonna need camp to come around to get I saw the headline. I was like, oh, that's
Are
cool.
they doing what is it, Hard Knocks? That should be Hard Knocks, right?
I don't think so because
Have they
they were
announced it?
recently in the last 5 years.
Oh, right. They don't double up. Right. Yeah.
They don't, or they
Yeah.
can say no. I would imagine they'll say no. You
Yeah.
have to be really narcissistic to be like every year, me.
And Jim Harbaugh is.
Right. So, and speaking of Bay Area teams, I love the way the Las Vegas mayor threw the A's owner under the bus the other day. That was, I'm just going to say awesome. That was awesome. A's on the waterfront looking across at Pac Bell Park or whatever they call it now. That's just so perfect. We got to have.
Sam was my correspondent on this. I was getting the real information because Sam is well versed in this sort of thing. Is there a chance the A's come back? Because I've given up. Everybody's like, "Are you going to watch the A's when they go to Vegas?" No, I'm not an A's fan.
No.
No.
I do.
There's a chance they never leave.
A's fan. Is there a possibility this falls apart?
There is a real possibility, but I will not speak about it because I don't want to jinx anything. So I'm just going to let it play out. You and I can talk privately, but
we'll knock wood on that.
Don't give me hope.
Okay, so speaking of the A's, I don't remember what year it was, but what the A's needed, they needed a right-handed bat and they needed a left-handed one-out guy. And they got John Mabry and Ricardo Rincon. 20-game win. You guys remember that?
2002. I was there. I was there at game 20.
I was yeah.
I can't place the year, but I remember.
Shout out Moneyball.
Scott Hatterberg with the
He doesn't look so good in jeans. That wasn't Hatterberg, but whatever. Here's my point. A couple trades on the tiniest of margins could help the Warriors a lot this year. And I got a couple trades. It's one day from the trade deadline, so I'm going to throw out a couple of marginal trades for you.
Let's go.
Kojo for Goga in Orlando. Remember when Gary Payton dunked on him last year and scratched his head and he got a fucking technical foul, Goga would help the Warriors a lot, and he's getting DNPs right now in Orlando, and he's out of contract after this season. They both make $2 million a year. Maybe the Dubs need to throw in a second-round pick. Whatever. Who cares?
So this is what I was going to say. When we're proposing trades, we always have to think the first question to ask is, why would the other team do this?
Right. The Magic needs shooting. And if you look at Kojo's history, he's a decent shooter from outside. He's a competent, organizing point guard that has won a ring. He can't hurt the Magic. And they've got a guy that they're not playing right now because their backup center is Mo Wagner, I think. So,
Wagner.
And he's good. He's good. But
Jonathan Isaac.
He might have some family connections keeping him in the rotation.
Right. They got Wendell Carter under contract. They got Mo Wagner.
He might win Sixth Man of the Year.
He might. Good for him.
He's been good.
And we'll take Goga. That would get us his bird rights, or at least his early bird rights. So that's a thing. That means as long as no other team offers him more than like 10 or 11 million a year, we could retain him in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a marginal trade, but I think the Dubs need to add some beef at the 5. I love Draymond at the 5, but I don't like it as a 30-some minute per game play. I think it needs to be less than 30 minutes a game, and a guy like Goga could really help out.
Appreciate it, Ken. I agree with you. I want them to be more bold, but I do wonder if just adding a dude who's a little better at the 5 doesn't, do a lot to help the rotation going forward.
Question becomes what happens with Dre, because Dre is going to play 30 whatever minutes. So
sure.
Answer at 4, and then we're back into the Kuminga Wiggins problem.
That's true. Let's get a little Klay Thompson noise. I want to end it on this.
I don't partake in NBA discourse on the internet. I think that's just a waste of energy. And at the end of the day, whether I'm wearing a Dubs uniform or another uniform, I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be KT.
I assume the preference remains to stay here even beyond this season, right?
That is correct. Good assessment.
Optimism pregame that even if no trades are made, he feels like this group still has what it takes to make a run, even though obviously you guys are sitting in 11th right now. Where is that level of optimism even from you? Like, that this group that's in here can still make noise.
See Steph Curry, see Draymond. You go home and you check our playoff record as a trio, and you add what we have, champions. I believe. I will always believe. Right? And it's a long season, so I will always believe we can always make a run, especially when we're all suited up.
Klay giving us the we believe?
I feel like I want to end on Klay with you right now. Very few people are still listening right now.
By the way, elite beard and hair combo from Klay. And then the collar turned up on the jacket.
Just a handsome man. Just a handsome man.
Good looking dude, yeah.
It's been rough watching him this year.
It's been a rough go, yeah. It's hard. It hurts. It hurts.
I can go. You know what? Like, watching Klay at his lowest actually makes me like him more than any other stage of his career, because it's easy to root for this dude when he's dropping 60 on 11 dribbles.
Mm-hmm.
You find a lot about a man's character when things don't go the right way for them.
Correct.
And he may never be a difference maker again. He may just be a spot up shooter the rest of his career. I personally think he's going to be better than that, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that that's all he has. This man loves basketball. Like,
yeah, he wants to smoke a little weed, hoop, and hang out with Rocco. Like, that's it.
How many guys on the Warriors react this way in general to poor play?
So, yeah, to your point, like, shout out to Klay. For the last couple of games, he has shown up and answered questions, and you can see he's hurting. I think, and by the way, a little credit to Steve Kerr, and I'm probably the hardest person on Steve Kerr publicly on planet Earth, but a little credit to Steve Kerr, because I think Steve may be one of the only people on planet Earth, maybe his brother and maybe his dad, that could have this conversation with Klay. And I think it has turned from Klay being kind of bitter about the situation to more honest about the situation. And like in watching the I think it was Slater and Bontemps had the I'm sure both friends of the show, the interview after the Brooklyn game where he didn't close for Guy Santos. It didn't feel like Klay was bitter. It felt like Klay was struggling to come to terms with who he is now. Yeah. And so shout out to Klay for that, because that's not easy. And he's right. It's like he framed it correctly. It's hard to go from whatever in 2 or 3 years. It's hard to go from one of the best players in the league to a guy that's sitting for the 55th pick in the draft. That's hard. I do think he was being, I do think he was genuine when he was praising the young guys and saying we won. But like, you're watching a dude like come to terms with his basketball mortality. And it's not just like some dude that like, you know, was a grinder. This is a fucking Hall of Famer and the second best shooter that has ever touched a basketball.
And
so watching him come to his own basketball mortality.
And I keep saying this for all, you're not a Warrior fan without Klay Thompson. I don't really give a fuck who your favorite player is. You're not. You probably wouldn't have been a fan at this level if he didn't do what he did in Game 6 against Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't be a fan at the same level you are if he didn't die on the court in 2019.
Yeah.
And I was there in the building. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in person. Like, he was the best player on the court. I had zero doubt in my mind they were going to win that game, force a Game 7. And I know Toronto was terrified because they were shitting their pants the entire game, you know? And that's, you know, they would have lost in 2018 to the Houston Rockets if not for Klay Thompson. KD, his head was on another planet. Klay was the one who won that game.
Well, and that Game 6, Klay,
incredibly valuable. Like, Steph is Steph. None of it happens without Steph. But like, not enough is mentioned how much Klay was integral to the dynasty. And you know what? If his career ends in terms of being an impact player 3 years before Steph Curry, that's life. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, Steph also has had those injuries. Steph had injury problems, but that was 10 years ago at this point. And Klay has had probably the two worst injury. Ruptured patella is awful, but two of the three worst injuries you can have.
And I just keep saying it. The context in which he did it makes him Teflon to me. It just does.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's hard to watch.
He got injured in Game 1 of the finals. He had to sit out Game 2. He comes back. He has one wheel. He plays the game of his life, and he gets undercut. And it costs him probably his career.
And like, again, like going back to what you were saying earlier, the Game 6 Klay obviously is a thing. It's a meme. And the Warriors season was over without him. But the ripple effects of that is one of the most important games in NBA history, right? The 73-9 Warriors, they go on to the finals, unfortunately lose to the Cavs. But if I would guess, my guess is OKC beats the Cavs in that finals. What does that do for Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors? So like, that has ripple effects all over the league. So like, shout out Klay in Game 6.
I just think he deserves a certain level of grace. I'm going to end it there. Aaron, appreciate you. We'll see how the last 15 hours of this trade deadline plays out. Appreciate everyone listening.
My pleasure, brother.